this year's Planet Forward Summit is all about the storyteller's journey, and it's highlighting the crises that we face around the world, but also trying to highlight the solutions as well, and a path forward. So I wanted to start asking you about the crises that you face and the work that you do with World's Central Kitchen. So your work involves a lot around the intersectionality of sustainability issues like climate change and equity. How do you choose where to go and why, and what's important about the location or event when you're considering, attending to the crisis?
Well, what Central Kitchen we tried to do was how we transform the problem into an opportunity. When we had farmers throwing food out in the fields because all of the sudden markets or restaurants were not buying their product. At the same time, we saw long lines in the food banks of America. At the same time, we saw restaurants shutting down and laying off employees. So if we had to feed people, and at the same time we had to keep the system working, what if we don't put those restaurants up and running? Not anymore as for-profit restaurants, but restaurants that became community kitchens. Why, if those restaurants, by injecting a little bit of money through them, they're the same restaurants that they can keep paying rent, paying the lights, more important, paying the employees, and in the process making meals that different organizations in need, elderly homes, hospitals, homeless, first responders. This is what we saw in this pandemic, that we had to think out of the box, not with a great idea that only Einstein could come up with, but a very simple idea using the resources that we had at our fingertips. That's what we did. We create kind of a 360-degree solution where everybody was important in the solution. That's very much how we went through this pandemic, trying to make problems into opportunities to create better systems.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of what we've talked about in our class, World on a Plate, the supply chain issue. And what you have achieved is looking at the entire supply chain and trying to pay attention to every person in the supply chain. And that, I think, is the reason why your approach is so successful.
This kind of situation we have, that in the richest country in the history of mankind, we have a huge population that is food insecure. When we have a population that is food insecure, means that those people are not able to be part of the society and helping create a better and a stronger economy.
So it reminds me of recently I read an article on your friend Andrew Zimmern, who was appointed as a Goodwill ambassador for the UN World Food Program. And his quote, which kind of just struck me, what you were just saying about innovation and our country and how wealthy it is, and yet we still have food insecurity. So his quote was, "It's mind-boggling that there is an issue that is killing people, harming our global culture, and resulting in an ongoing catastrophe, one that we actually also have the skill to solve, but clearly we don't have the political will to actually execute." And it just struck me as soon as I read that, I thought of you immediately, because it's the same echo I hear from you about these issues. It's got to be up to the policymakers to make that change and implement the solutions. It's not rocket science.
Many of the issues we really face, not only in America, we saw in this pandemic, but across the world, begins and ends with access to food in an affordable way. When we solve this conundrum with the right political will, we will fight hunger and the world will be really a better place.
Thinking of how you built the World Central Kitchen from the ground up, I bet it was a really empowering experience, but it was probably also very daunting at the same time. Could you talk about how your programs have changed over time, and what you see the future to be for World Central Kitchen? What's on the horizon?
We're not an organization that brings a lot of hardware, meaning assets that we own. We are an organization that believes in software, more brain and more heart, empathy and smarts. And we go to a place and we maximize as much as we can whatever is available to us. Who can give us or rent us a kitchen? What restaurants or food trucks can join us? Who may have a ship if we need to feed multiple islands? Who may have helicopters if we fundamentally, the only thing we've changed is that now, whatever mission it is, we're thinking big enough. 3 billion people on planet Earth are still cooking with fossil fuels. This is a clear and present danger to try to combat climate change. But more important, families are poorer because they use more wood than they need. Deforestation is creating a lot of mayhem in tropical areas. Women are unhealthy because they smokes they inhale. All of a sudden, clean cooking is at the heart of moving 3 billion people from semi-food insecurity and poverty, many of them highly food insecure and very poor, into hope by not throwing money into smoke in the air, but making sure that that money stays in their family, in their communities, invested in better health, in better education, in better food.
I wanted to ask you, because a lot of things right now are so divided and negative, is how you cut through that negativity and get your story to people with that positive outcome, with that, even though you're often talking about some really challenging situations, you always have, this bright light at the end.
We need to understand that there is not perfect solution to every single problem in a planet that is highly complicated, with people with many backgrounds, different faith, different ways of seeing things. Creating is the most difficult of arts. Bringing people together is the most difficult of things to do in life. That's why it's so important that nobody should follow a leader that is a leader of destruction, is a leader of breaking things and people apart, that is only telling you that the only way they have of lead is by finger pointing to the bad things that the other side, versus what are you going to create to create that better world you're claiming. That's why it's so essential that young people lead the way in making sure that political parties don't use us as their peons to do whatever they want. But we understand and we make them understand that they are here to service us, from private sector to government to other places in the world. They will shape a better world by putting food more in the center and making sure that, again, food stops being the problem and becomes once and for all the solution. Planet forward, planet food forward, we should call it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to spend with us and talk about Planet Forward and our summit this semester. We're really excited. Again, I'm excited about next semester and our World on a Plate class.
Well, thank you, Tara, because every day you make me smarter. So I appreciate and I love to have this class at George Washington with you.
Tara, come on up. So Tara Scully, as you saw, just engaged Jose, as she does in class all the time, and he kind of goes 100 miles an hour. I think the thing that he talked about that's important here is this sort of trying to convey positivity amid all the crisis. You're a biologist. You're a scientist.
Yes.
I mean, you weren't trained to be a storyteller. Why does this matter to you?
It matters to me because of something a colleague said to me recently, Provost Chris Bracey, actually. He said to me, and I have it on a sticker on my computer, there's always the truth, but then there's the story. And as a scientist, we've been sitting at our lab benches and publishing papers thinking that the truth would get out there, but it's not. And I think that it's really, really important that we start engaging in storytelling. And I know a lot of my colleagues here at GW are trying to do that as well.
It's a big thing with scientists, right? Trying to communicate science. Have you heard from Jose since he's been in Ukraine or anybody around him?
And
following his tweets
yes,
and things?
Following his tweets and things, and I'm really worried about him. He's, going into the battlefield, and I'm very proud of him as a friend. He's just such an amazing person and inspirational. But he believes, I think one quote that I remember from him as well is that very early on in his career, he realized the power of food. I mean, look at the power of food. It can, destroy a political system. But it also can evoke memories and take you and transport you to different places and times. And I think right now in Ukraine, that's what's important. He's helping those people in the middle of this war, just trying to take a moment and not feel like they're in the middle of a war.
Tara, thank you very, very much. Really enjoyed that in your class. We should all audit the class.
Yes,
I think
please,
something Tara said is
register
very
for the
important.
class.
Being there, the way he's using his social media, this is powerful storytelling. You all know that. We can do good as well with our social media. We've had a lot of students who've done food stories this past year. Planet Forward had a partnership with FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, for Planet FAO Fellows. Here are a few of some of the stories they did. The Big New Ag, what regenerative agriculture can learn from conventional farming. Benjamin Thomas from Franklin and Marshall College did that one. COVID prompted local communities to creatively combat food insecurity. Our structural solutions next. Sajal Govindaro from GW here. Indigenous Peoples Liaison set her sights on youth food security in the land. Terius Harris, University of Oklahoma, was our fellow doing that one. Sustainability is the goal. Here's what young farmers need to get there. That was done by Jules Struck from Emerson College. So it's been a real privilege to work with FAO. Food is a huge issue. How many in the room are concerned about food security, sustainable agriculture? You want to eat healthy, like we're all food consumers. It's been a privilege, as I said. Here's Jocelyn Brown Hall. She's director of FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization in North America. Take a look.
So we have a situation right now where we have more conflict all over the world. We have conflict in Somalia. We have conflict in Sudan. We have conflict in Ethiopia. We have conflict in Afghanistan. Now we have conflict in Ukraine. And you would not believe how little there is of a discussion about agriculture, seeds, livestock, people getting those seeds and livestock, being able to plant them on their own and be self-sufficient in that area. And you hear a lot about security or peace forces or health or COVID or vaccines. You don't talk about the basics of agriculture, which has to be at the center of any resilience program for people who are in the middle of these difficult periods of food insecurity. If you eat it, if you breathe it, if you drink it, if you wear it, it has to do with agriculture. And I really want people to understand that agriculture touches every single solitary aspect of a person's life 24/7. People think of it really as, just a seed and a hoe and back-breaking work in the sun. And that's not what agriculture is. And that's why I think it's so important for us to get the story out through Planet Forward. The stories that the Planet Forward Fellows produced this year were incredibly inspiring and imaginative and impressive. And it was an honor to be able to listen to them. I was impressed by how diverse they were, whether it was about indigenous people's food systems, regenerative food systems. Just shows everyone how diverse agriculture is, that this is not your grandparents' agriculture anymore, that agriculture can be hip and cool and bring us all kinds of dietary differences. And I certainly know that the diet that I eat now is incredibly different from 40 years ago, and that has a lot to do with our global connections, and youth need to be part of that. I also want to strongly encourage everyone to check out the rest of the stories on the recipes for food security on Planet Forward's website, because you will be inspired also.